We're lucky to share our lives with the animals we do. Imagine coming home from work or school without the warm greetings of cats and dogs. It just wouldn't be the same. But if you look beyond urban areas, you'll discover an incredible array of wildlife, including some creatures so unique they seem almost mythical. From the dazzling superb bird of paradise to the enchanting leafy sea dragon, here are 20 real-life animals that look like they belong in a fantasy world. Number 20. Superb bird of paradise. The superb bird of paradise, or greater lofarina, is as superb as its name suggests. These small birds from the rainforests of New Guinea have incredible features that make them stand out. Like most bird species, the male is the more impressive one. They have green crowns, blue-green coloring on their chest, and a black cape over their back. In contrast, females tend to be reddish-brown. There are very limited numbers of females, which means competition is fierce. The males must work really hard to win their lady's love. They do this in 2 stages of courtship known as initial display activity and high-intensity display. This courtship process can involve preparing a dance floor by scrubbing dirt smooth with leaves and then using a loud call to attract the ladies. Yeah, but when I do that, they tell me I gotta leave the park. When a female approaches, he'll spread out his black feathery cape until it forms an ellipse shape around him. He'll then snap his tail feathers against each other, similarly to how we snap our fingers, and then hop around in circles like a dance. Generally, females will watch this play out with up to 20 different birds before she chooses a mate, and it can take days before she's won over. Number 19. Narwhal. About as close as you're gonna get to a unicorn in the ocean is the narwhal. These toothed whales from Arctic waters around Russia, Canada, and Greenland have large, straight, helical tusks that are actually elongated upper left canine teeth. So they may look like unicorns, but they're not. But there certainly are a lot of interesting stories throughout history involving the narwhal. In Inuit legend, the strange narwhal tusk was created when a woman or girl with a harpoon rope around her waist and her harpoon gets stuck in a narwhal. She was subsequently dragged into the ocean, where she was turned into a narwhal herself. Her hair, which was twisted into a knot, became the spiral narwhal tusk. Medieval Europeans believed that the tusk was the horn of a unicorn and had magic powers, like curing melancholia, which is essentially a depressed mood. Whenever Vikings and traders sold them, they were able to make huge money on them. They also used to make cups out of the tusks, which they thought would stop the effects of poison if someone interfered with their drink. These days, you'd think we'd know better than to kill these majestic creatures, but we don't. About 1,000 of them are killed each year, with their skin, vertebrae, teeth, and tusks all sold. Their meat is eaten or fed to dogs. Number 18. Star-nosed mole. Star-nosed moles are one of those creatures that you're not sure whether they're cute or not. They have so many adorable features, but then you look at their face and can't help but recoil a bit in horror. They're small moles found in northern parts of North America and have star-like suctions on their faces. These have about 25,000 sensory receptors, known as Eimer's organs, that they use to detect vibrations in the earth. Their noses are only around 1 centimeter wide, but they have 22 appendages containing those 25,000 receptors. Researchers think that because the star-nosed mole is blind, they use their noses to find electrical activity in prey animals, although this theory doesn't have a whole lot of support. Even though they have poor vision, they still have the title of being the fastest eating mammal, since it takes them just 120 milliseconds to identify something as food and eat it. As they live in wet lowland areas, they eat aquatic insects, worms, small fish, amphibians, and mollusks. They're good swimmers and dig surface tunnels from the land into the water for foraging. Number 17. Aardvark. Aardvarks, or African anteaters, are unusual nocturnal mammals from Africa. They have pig-like long snouts to sniff out food and sharp claws set on powerful legs to dig out ant and termite hills to have a delicious feast. Aardvarks will also dig to create burrows to live in and raise their young. These unique creatures tend to live in savannas, grasslands, bushland, and woodland, which means they're really not fussy about where they call home. As long as food like ants is available, they'll make do. They can live a surprisingly long time, up to 23 years in captivity, and they may avoid being eaten in the wild due to their incredible hearing. They can hear hyenas, pythons, cheetahs, lions, and other predators and have a head start to get to safety. If they're spotted, they can dig fast to get away but also run in a zigzag fashion. If that fails, they strike with their tail, claws, and shoulders, which can actually land their predators quite a lot of damage. Number 16. Okapi. Okapi are such unusual animals that people often call them forest giraffes or zebra giraffes. It's like our creator had a few different features left over from other animals they had made and decided to blend them all together to create this artiodactyl mammal that's endemic to the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. These unique animals have striped markings like zebras, but they're actually more closely related to the giraffe, and you can kind of see that in how long their necks are and how huge and flexible their ears are. Okapi stand nearly 5 feet tall at the shoulder and can be as long as 8.2 feet. They can also weigh up to 770 pounds. They have chocolate brown to red-brown coats, white horizontal stripes on their legs, white ankles, and horn-like growths on their heads that generally grow no longer than 6 inches. Their uniqueness doesn't end with their looks. They also don't act like many other mammals either. They're mostly solitary and will only join others to breed. They're also known to be active during the day and often within a few hours of the evening. Okapi are endangered, and some of the most significant threats they face relate to habitat loss from human settlements and logging, along with hunting for their skin and meat. Now it's time for today's topic. Today's fascinating image was sent to us by a subscriber who stumbled upon this mythical-looking creature online. At first glance, it appears to be a cross between a fox, an owl, and a male deer, with its striking antlers, piercing eyes, and a mane of golden fur. The creature, standing upright with an almost human-like posture, has sparked curiosity and debate. Could this be a real, undiscovered species? Or is it simply a work of art? As intriguing as it may seem, this creature is not real. It's actually a stunning creation by artist Anya Baz, who specializes in crafting mythical beings. Dubbed the Gryphon, this creature is a blend of a fawn and a griffin, two legendary creatures from folklore. Made from fake fur, resin, and plastic, the Gryphon is designed as a spiritual room guardian, meant to evoke a sense of wonder and mystery. While it's not a living creature, the craftsmanship and detail make it look incredibly lifelike, blurring the line between reality and fantasy. If you've come across a mysterious photo online and want us to investigate, send it our way. We might just feature it in a future video. What do you think of the Gryphon? Let us know in the comments. Number 15. Gerenuk. Gerenuk, or giraffe gazelle, are antelope with long necks that live in dry areas of East Africa and the Horn of Africa. They have long, slender necks and limbs and grow up to around 3.5 feet tall. You can generally identify Gerenuk by their smooth reddish-brown coats and horns on the males. These curve backward, then up, and can be up to 17.5 inches long. These unique animals forage and feed throughout the day and make a point of exposing themselves to rain to cool their bodies down. They live in small herds of up to 6 members, and they are mostly always one sex. It's not uncommon for the males to live alone rather than in herds. Unlike many other animals, Gerenuk don't tend to travel or fight. Experts believe they refrain from doing anything that takes up too much energy that they could be using for foraging. And when you see how they get food, you'll know why they want to save that energy. They don't just stick with what they can reach on 4 legs. To access higher branches on trees to eat flowers, fruit, and shoots, they will stand up on their hind legs to get nearly 7 feet above the ground. Number 14. Thorny devil. A thorny devil sounds like a made-up animal, but it's actually a lizard species endemic to Australia. Some people also call it a mountain devil, and I don't know if that's any better or worse, really. These lizards were first described in 1841 and were named because of their similarity to a devil or dragon due to their 2 large horn scales. They grow up to about 8.3 inches long, or 21 centimeters, and can live for up to 2 decades. If you're going to spot these strange creatures anywhere, it's in the scrublands and desert areas of central Australia. Here, they survive by eating ants and collecting moisture from the dew that forms on their own bodies. These lizards have tiny grooves on their spines that allow water to travel down to their mouths, and they drink the same way when rain touches their bodies. But that's not all that's interesting about these little guys. They are covered in rigid, sharp spines, which they use as a form of defense, as they wouldn't be all that pleasant to swallow. They don't have a lot of predators except for goannas and wild birds. To protect themselves, they lower their heads between their front legs, which allows them to present a false head. Number 13. Glaucus atlanticus sea slugs. Glaucus atlanticus is a fancy name for something as straightforward as a sea slug, but it won't take you long to realize there's something special about this sea slug. It almost looks mythical. They're commonly called blue sea dragons, sea swallows, blue angels, and blue dragons, and they suit every single one of those names. These beautiful 1.2-inch long slugs have striking blue coloring with dark blue stripes on their heads and silvery gray color on their dorsal side. They also have flat, tapering bodies and 6 appendages that branch out. These make the slugs look absolutely mesmerizing in the water. Since they are pelagic, this means they float upside down and use the water's surface tension to stay up. Ocean currents and wind then carry them along, meaning they basically don't need to put in any effort. As graceful and elegant as they look, you wouldn't want to touch one of these sea slugs. They eat other pelagic creatures and store stinging nematocysts from other animals in their own tissues to deliver painful and sometimes dangerous stings. If you're stung, you may experience nausea, vomiting, pain, acute allergic contact dermatitis, skin redness, wart-like skin bumps, and post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which causes your skin to darken. So, as pretty and mythical as they look, they are not a sea creature you'll want to touch. Number 12. Lowland streaked tenrec. At first glance, the lowland streaked tenrec looks like an oversized mutant bumblebee. It has a yellow stripe and black patches, and these are made to stand out with a massive number of quills that serve as a reminder to predators that they're not to be messed with. Lowland streaked tenrecs aren't very big, growing up to about 7 inches long and weighing as much as 10 ounces. However, they don't need to be big to protect themselves. They can make their quills move and rub together to create sounds, and these can be warning signals to predators. They'll also stamp their feet when they smell predators and will erect their quills forward and laterally to protect themselves as much as possible. These cute little critters live in the northern and eastern areas of Madagascar in the tropical lowland rainforest. You can find them on land, but they tend to spend much of their life splashing around in shallow water and digging underground. They're active at night and during the day and spend a lot of time digging up earthworms as their primary food source. They can also eat fruit and other invertebrates if they're available. This unique, mythical-like creature's population numbers are of least concern, but deforestation does pose a risk. Number 11. Saiga antelope. Saiga antelope are so strange-looking, they almost look like they're the bizarre creation of an author for a children's storybook. They're a critically endangered antelope, and their population has decreased by as much as 95% in just 15 years. Saigas have unique, bloated nostrils that point downward. They have dark markings on their noses and cheeks, and their coat changes color depending on the time of the year. Male saiga antelope have thick, wax-colored horns with up to 20 rings that grow up to about 15 inches long. These unique creatures live in a vast part of the Eurasian steppe, from the Carpathian Mountains in Europe all the way to Dzungaria, a part of northwest China. They also used to live in Beringian North America and the British Isles during the Pleistocene. Even though their numbers are dwindling, they're still hunted for their meat, horns, and skin, all of which have commercial value. The horn is a vital ingredient in Chinese medicine, with a similar value to the rhino horn. However, some countries, such as Kazakhstan, have placed a ban on hunting saiga. Number 10. Tardigrade. Tardigrades are so strange and absurd, they almost don't seem real. That much is obvious when you learn they also get called water bears and moss piglets. They are segmented microanimals with 8 legs and live everywhere in the Earth's biosphere, including mud volcanoes, deep oceans, tropical rainforests, and even Antarctica. Water bears are pretty much the most resilient animal on Earth. You could throw them into the deep ocean, then put them into a rainforest and they would adapt with ease. They can live with extreme temperatures, extreme pressures, air deprivation, radiation, starvation, dehydration, and more. They've even survived exposure in outer space. Yeah, it doesn't get much more absurd than that. Tardigrades grow up to about 0.5 millimeter long, which is about 0.02 inches. They're short and plump with little claws on their feet, and they also have suction discs. They mainly feed on plant cells, small invertebrates, and algae. To survive, the unusualness of tardigrades has actually made them quite famous. They appeared in an episode of Family Guy in 2018 and South Park the previous year. They even had a mention in Star Trek Discovery in 2017 and a song called Tardigrade Song by musician Cosmo Sheldrake. Number 9. Bald Wakari. Bald wakaris look so unusual you might assume they're mythical creatures that don't exist in the wild, but they do. Bald wakaris are New World monkeys with short tails, bright crimson faces, bald heads, and long coats. They only live in varzea forests and wooded areas in Peru and the western Amazon of Brazil, so they're a vulnerable species. Generally, these unique monkeys grow up to about 18 inches tall and weigh up to about 8 pounds. They have long, shaggy coats and bob-like tails. Their red faces are caused by a lack of skin pigments and a large number of capillaries that exist under their facial tissue. These monkeys are always on the move, and they can travel up to 4.8 kilometers, or 3 miles, a day. Usually, they live in male and female groups of up to 30, and in some situations even up to 100. Their home area typically covers an area of about 600 hectares, or 1,500 acres, and they protect their home at all costs. Bald wakaris will erect their hair, wag their tails, and they're very vocal to warn off other monkey groups or predators. They usually live for up to 30 years, and this is true of bald wakari monkeys in the wild and in captivity. Number 8. Chupacabra. Chupacabra sounds like some kind of witch's spell, but it's actually the name of a legendary creature in folklore in some parts of the Americas that supposedly attacks and drinks the blood of goats and other livestock. We say that this mythical creature exists in the wild, but we don't actually know for sure. However, the first sightings of it weren't that long ago, with someone apparently seeing a chupacabra in Puerto Rico in the 1970s and as recently as 1995. There have also been reported sightings in Chile, Russia, the Philippines, northern Mexico, and the United States in Maine. The name of this creature is from the belief that it's a type of vampire animal, drinking the blood of animals. Some say it's dog-like in its features, but people in Latin America and Puerto Rico describe it as more alien-like or reptilian. You may also see it described or illustrated as a creature about the size of a small bear with spines from its neck to the base of its tail. And when you get a name like chupacabra, which means goat sucker, these creatures have clearly been up to no good. In 1975 in Mocha, livestock kept being killed with their bodies being bled dry with tiny incisions. Many farmers were reporting losses, and one woman, Madeline Tolentino, reported seeing a creature like the chupacabra in a Puerto Rican town where 150 pets and farm animals were killed. Number 7. Vampire deer. Vampire deer isn't the name given to a single deer species. Instead, it kind of incorporates a few different species that have impressive sets of fang teeth, like vampires, rather than a glorious pair of antlers on their heads. They might also have antlers and fangs, but the fangs are definitely the more impressive feature. One such deer is the musk deer, which is a collective name for up to 7 different animals that aren't true deer. They lack antlers, preorbital glands, and only have one gallbladder, a musk gland, a caudal gland, and a pair of canine tusks. Musk deer live in forested and alpine areas of southern Asia, and it's the males that fall under the category of vampire deer more than females. They have enlarged upper canines that look like tusks, yet their dental development is similar to a deer. And let's not forget about the muntjac deer of Indonesia and southern Asia. These deer live in forests and have fewer chromosomes than a fruit fly. They also have the lowest chromosome count of any other mammal. These deer do have small antlers, but it's their teeth that capture your attention first. They're tusk-like canine teeth that they can use as a weapon against other deer. Female muntjac have 6 chromosomes, and the males have 7. That's far less than a potato, which has 48, and 1 or 2 less than fruit flies with 8. Number 6. Red-lipped batfish. You'd be forgiven for thinking that red-lipped batfish aren't real. They're just so comical that they really do seem like a bit of a myth. But these fish are actually real and live around the Galapagos Islands and Peru. As the name suggests, they are known for their bright red lips. The rest of their bodies are relatively pale in color, but they have a bright red mouth that is incredibly distinctive. They're remarkable in other ways too, in the respect that, unlike nearly all other fish, they aren't great swimmers. So, they use their pectoral, pelvic, and anal fins to walk around the ocean floor. Here, they are bottom dwellers and feed on small invertebrates like mollusks, worms, shrimp, and crabs. Hunting for food is made much easier by the fact that they have a dorsal fin to use as a lure for prey. This surely makes up for not being able to outswim other creatures. Surprisingly, they don't have any predators or direct threats, although the rising sea temperatures could affect their natural habitat and food sources. For now, their population numbers seem fine, and their conservation status is of least concern. Number 5. Giant golden-crowned flying fox. The giant golden-crowned flying fox is quite an unusual bat. It's endemic to the Philippines and is one of the largest species in the world, weighing up to 3.1 pounds. These megabats, which are also called golden-capped fruit bats, mainly consume figs and leaves, and they sleep during the day in trees before awaking at night to go foraging. When they sleep in tree roosts, they usually share them with thousands of other bats, and even different species. We don't know much about how they reproduce, except that they have one pup at a time from April to June. We are pretty much their biggest predator due to deforestation and poaching for meat, but they also have natural predators like reticulated pythons and eagles. Telling the giant golden-crowned flying fox apart from other bat species is actually quite hard because they do look similar to others, although they have much smaller teeth and are, of course, much larger than most other bats. We wouldn't recommend approaching them, and not just because you should generally leave wild animals alone. They've been investigated as a source of infectious diseases, such as the Reston virus, which is a form of Ebola virus affecting primates but not humans. Number 4. Golden tortoise beetle. Most beetles are pretty interesting, but there's one that's so mythical looking you might mistake it for a piece of lost jewelry. The golden tortoise beetle is a leaf beetle native to the Americas. They grow up to about 7 millimeters long and can be reddish-brown with black spots or mirror-like gold. The latter has earned them the nickname goldbug. Their shimmering, metallic appearance is due to microscopic layers in their cuticle that reflect light, creating the illusion of gold. Interestingly, this golden sheen can fade to a duller color when the beetle is stressed or disturbed, making it seem like the beetle can turn off its shine. This ability to change color is thought to be a defense mechanism, helping them blend into their surroundings or confuse predators. They are often found on plants like morning glories and sweet potatoes, where they feed on the leaves and lay their eggs. Golden tortoise beetles are not just interesting in how they look, but in their life cycle too. They lay clusters of eggs on the stems of host leaves, and reddish-brown or yellow larvae come out of the eggs within 10 days. The larva then collects the skin it sheds and its solid excreta to cover its body in a type of fecal shield to survive and protect itself. This stops small insects like ants from eating it, which gives it a better chance of survival to emerge as an adult about 2 weeks later. Number 3. The Mata Mata turtle. You're probably familiar with what your average turtle looks like, But when you see a mata turtle, you might think, whoa, that is definitely not what I was picturing. They really don't look like most other turtles at all. They're a freshwater species from South America, most commonly found in the Amazon and Orinoco basins, living in slow-moving bodies of water like marshes, swamps, and stagnant pools. These turtles are masters of disguise, with their rough, bark-like appearance allowing them to blend seamlessly into their surroundings. This camouflage is crucial for their hunting strategy, as they are ambush predators that rely on stealth rather than speed. They feed primarily on fish, which they catch by using a unique suction feeding method. When prey comes close, the mata turtle opens its mouth wide, creating a vacuum that sucks in the fish along with water. This feeding technique is highly effective but also means they need to remain perfectly still for long periods to avoid scaring off potential prey. Their sedentary lifestyle and unusual appearance have made them a favorite subject for researchers studying evolutionary adaptations in turtles. Despite their intimidating look, mata turtles are not aggressive and pose no threat to humans. They were first mentioned all the way back in 1741, with French naturalist Pierre Barrère describing them as large land turtles with spiky and ridged scales, and that's basically what they are. They are massive, sedentary turtles, growing up to 37 inches long and weighing 46 pounds, with lots of ridges and spikes. They have large, flattened heads, so kind of a triangular shape, and barbels on their chins and upper jaws. With all the deep notches and ridges, these turtles look like pieces of bark, which actually helps them camouflage against potential predators. Number 2. Venezuelan poodle moth. In 2009, the entire internet community lost their minds when the Venezuelan poodle moth was discovered. Very rarely do we hear about any new animal discoveries, and especially not incredibly unique ones. So nearly everyone heard about this one. The Venezuelan poodle moth almost looks made up. It's fuzzy, adorable, and looks a bit like a fairy, but it's just a very unusual moth. Zoologist Arthur Anker from Kyrgyzstan discovered it in 2009 and quickly identified it as a new species. Its discovery sparked countless debates online, with some people convinced it was a digitally created hoax. Others speculated that it might be an undiscovered hybrid species, blending traits of moths and other insects. The moth's fluffy, almost cartoonish appearance made it an instant internet sensation, with memes and fan art flooding social media. Scientists were equally intrigued, as its unique features suggested it could belong to a previously unknown genus. Despite its fame, very little is known about its behavior, diet, or life cycle, leaving researchers with more questions than answers. Some experts believe its fluffy coat might serve as camouflage or insulation in its natural habitat. Its large, black eyes are thought to help it navigate in low-light conditions, but this remains unconfirmed. The mystery surrounding the Venezuelan poodle moth has only added to its allure, making it one of the most fascinating discoveries of the 21st century. It's white, fluffy, and has brown antennae and large, black bulging eyes. The pictures of this moth are so unique that many people thought it was a hoax. Surely a creature this absurd couldn't exist, and for this long, without any of us knowing about it. Nonsense. As it looks like a cross between a moth and a poodle, the name is very fitting. We know pretty much nothing about this moth because it hasn't been spotted again since Arthur found it, but it was found in the Canaima National Park in Venezuela, which means it may like a diverse range of habitats like rock plateaus and moist forests. Number 1. Leafy sea dragon. Leafy sea dragons are so unusual in their looks and behaviors that it's easy to assume they are fictional creatures in a book. They're actually real marine fish that live along Australia's western and southern coasts. Leafy sea dragons get their name from the many leaf-like protrusions on their bodies. They don't use them for propulsion but instead as camouflage. They get around with the help of their pectoral fin and dorsal fin, with the rest of their protrusions moving around in the water to make them look like floating seaweed, not a snack for predators. Their ability to blend in so seamlessly with their surroundings makes them one of the most well-camouflaged creatures in the ocean. This camouflage is essential for avoiding predators like larger fish and seabirds, as they have no natural defenses like spines or venom. Leafy sea dragons are also slow swimmers, which makes their disguise even more critical for survival. They rely on their stealth and appearance to avoid detection rather than speed or aggression. Leafy sea dragons tend to live alone but will pair up to breed. They're generally mature enough by the age of 2, and like other sea dragons, the male cares for the eggs. They hatch after around 9 weeks, but out of approximately 250, only about 5% survive. And their survival is quite crucial, as they've become endangered through industrial runoff, pollution, and capture for the aquarium trade. They are protected in South Australia, Victoria, and Western Australia. However, some people do own them as pets, but it's an expensive process. They must all have come from captive bred stock before collecting restrictions were imposed, and that owner must have had a license. They are also challenging to keep alive and cost about $15,000 each. They are prohibitive to most collectors, although you can catch a glimpse of them at aquariums in Australia, Canada, Southeast Asia, and the United States. The world is truly full of unique, strange, and almost mythical creatures. Can you think of any fascinating ones that weren't included on this list? Which of these did you find the most unusual? Don't forget to check out more amazing content appearing on your screen right now. See you next time.